Hey everybody, today Rahdo talks through Legacy of Dragonholt, which is going to be kind of a tricky thing for me to do today because this is less of a game and more of a storytelling adventure that players share. And it's an absolutely wonderful experience. Jen and I have just loved it to bits. And here's the thing, I don't want to spoil any of it for you. So I'm just going to give you kind of an idea of what the content is, how the system works, without going into any of the particulars of this big, epic, multi-chapter story that players can work through by themselves, or even better, with their loved ones. Now, what do you get with the game? You get a rule book, super simple. I mean, because there are very few rules. For all intents and purposes, Legacy of Dragonholt is a choose-your-own-adventure that you share with other people. There are several steps you go to. First of all, it's funny, the rules are shorter than this book for character creation. And it's a really great exercise to create a character in this game, choosing race, class, gender, skills, and all that stuff. And the game comes with paper that you're actually supposed to fill in by hand, kind of like you're playing a pen and paper adventure game, like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing. Now, if you don't actually want to use the limited piece of paper they give you, you can go onto the website and they give you templates you can download. Here's Jen's and my characters we've been playing, and here's the sheets that we've been keeping track of our progress through all the stories. But once you get through that process, which is amazing, by the way, Jen has absolutely no experience, background in pen and paper role-playing games at all. So for her, it was a really interesting experience trying to come up with a character, more than just a name and a race, but a personality, a history, a background, because the game, the character creator, very much recommends that you spend a lot of time, and it gives you a lot of help thinking in terms of how do I create a character who I'm truly going to roleplay? Because as you play through the stories in Dragonholt, you're going to want to make decisions not necessarily based on, well, what do I think gives me the greatest chance of success, but rather, who is my character? What is his background? What are the things that have made this person who they are? And based on that, what would they do? It's been an incredible that's what this game really is more than anything else, an introduction to role-playing. And I think if you get it, it's a very good chance you'll enjoy it and you'll think, I want more. And it could be a first step towards the broader, wider world of traditional pen and paper role-playing games. But anyway, so after you make your character, you find yourself on the road in this adventure. 2 new roads. Now, like I said, I don't want to spoil any of this. There's actually playthroughs online if you want to see this first chapter. But basically, we're a group of adventurers who have been summoned to the town of Dragonholt by an old friend of ours. They sent us this letter. And what you do is you read a series of storyline chapters and then make choices. Like, okay, I'm just going to pick one totally random. Oh, they're out there somewhere, says Miriam with a wave of her hand. You know us gnomes, we don't settle down much, but my father taught me most of what I know about brewing potions, and my mother was almost as good a tailor as her sister before. Never mind about that. My father and brother are out there on the road somewhere. I'm sure I'll see them at the next festival. And Sapphire and Braxton are all the family I need right now. That was entry number 3715. Obviously, that came about because I was in a conversation with a character named Miriam, and I asked her, looks like I asked her about her family. It's interesting. That was not a bit of background I knew about Miriam from having played through the game properly. But anyway, so somebody makes a choice. This was obviously a case where somebody wanted to ask her about her family, and she said, oh, well, they're out there somewhere. And then after that, in this case, we would mark story points H1 and K6 on our sheet that we use to keep track of the overall game. I'm trying to find mine here now. Oh, I can't find it. Here we go. Yeah, so there are a list of all these different events that could happen depending on the choices you make as you go through the story. And I'm looking at ours. Oh yeah, we did cross H1. So even though we never actually read this particular story, I must have picked up H1. I must have asked her or gotten this information via some other means because we have H1 and K6 marked. Interestingly, I do not have K6 marked. So, I know, from having played through the story, I know half of it. I know about H1, but I don't know about K6. If, when Jen and I had played through the New Roads chapter, we had made different choices, we would have marked both those. Now, what does it mean to mark these? Well, at some point down the road, maybe in this adventure, maybe in another adventure, maybe while we're exploring town, who knows, we'll come across something and it'll say, hey, do you have K6 marked? If so, do this, otherwise do that. This game is full to the brim. It's absolutely amazing how many branching paths and narrative storylines you can follow down all kinds of rabbit holes. But it's incredibly satisfying. But anyway, let's see. So after you mark those, where was that? Then, if 2 or more time has passed, read 7094, otherwise read 7616. This is another huge element to the game. As you go through these adventures, time is passing, and this is what really makes this special. This is what elevates it above a traditional choose-your-own-adventure book, because you make choices, and sometimes you make choices as time passes, and you keep track in a given adventure of how much time has passed. Things don't sit still and wait for you to come around in this game. There might be people who are only at certain places early in the morning, and you know, I gotta get there in the morning or they're gonna be gone. But if I do this other thing right now, time will pass. I'll mark that. And then when I get to the other place, it'll say, hey, how much time has passed? Oh, too much time has passed. You missed the person you were supposed to meet, or you missed the event you were gonna try and do, or you missed your rendezvous, or whatever it was supposed to be. The fact that you're constantly keeping track of time, and the characters of this world have their own lives that they're leading, have their own schedules that they're following, makes it come alive in an amazing way. Every morning, because this game takes place over several days as we go through all these different adventures, every morning we sit down and write, okay, what is it we have to do? It's Tuesday, or whatever the fancy version of Tuesday is. Right, we know this is the day where we're supposed to meet that person in the afternoon. We got a little bit of time in the morning. We haven't been over to the blacksmith yet. We should really go introduce ourselves. But will we have time, or should we get there early to make sure we don't miss them, because we don't know exactly when they're going to be there? You have those kinds of considerations in this game. That's not the type of experience you normally have, outside of a traditional pen and paper game where you have a dungeon master who can make this world alive and truly respond to everything you're doing. The time system in this game is brilliant. Absolutely brings it to life, especially once you eventually finish this New Roads adventure and find yourself in the town of Dragonholt. Look at this. This is basically a small phone book's worth of story entries. And you can see, you can keep track of all the different statuses of the different adventures you're on, how much time you've spent and all that. This is a living, breathing world. Jen and I, we have spent many, many hours exploring all the nooks and crannies of Dragonholt. We know these people. We feel like we've lived here. And even though, we're pretty much done with the whole thing, man, there is so much we haven't seen. We know full well, because we've had to make choices. Okay, well, I gotta go meet that person. That means that other thing, we're never going to see it. If I want to see what that other event was that maybe leads on an adventure, maybe it gives me more insight, maybe it gives us secrets that we're looking to unlock, maybe it's some part of a puzzle we missed, but we couldn't do it because we can't be everywhere at once. We have to make choices, just like the real world. This is a game that I would say we could play through at least twice in its entirety, because the second time we play through this, we'll make completely new characters that are radically different than our old characters, so that we will have, even in the same adventures we've gone on, we will explore different avenues there and solve problems in different ways. Because getting back to the character creation, one of the big things from a gameplay point of view is there are a whole list of different types of skills: combat, physical, mental, social, and utility skills. You can only have so many skills, and the more skills you take for yourself, the physically weaker you are, so you're more likely to get beaten up in combat. So it's an interesting balance when you're creating your character. Do I just make myself just an incredible character with all these different skills, but I can get knocked over by a stiff wind, or do I just focus, okay, I'm really good at this and this and this, and I'm strong like ox. Now that's important because the example I just chose randomly wasn't particularly interesting. Let me just go ahead and pick another thing randomly. Okay, in town, entry 3826. Now these are just little random snippets out of nowhere. I don't tell you the big story, but you join in with the celebrations and are soon surrounded by smiling, happy people. Directly in front of you, a circle of gnomes and villagers spins around, hooting and whooping to the music as they dance. To your left, a group of musicians has launched into a fast-paced jig where a chorus of mainly gnomish singers provide the lyrics. You see Jasper among them, his son sitting on his shoulders. Miriam and Braxton dance nearby, completely absorbed by, let's see, all right. This is actually pretty long. There's a big celebration in town. But interestingly, after the end of that, remember that other example I gave you? It's just like, okay, because you got this, you've marked some information, and now you go and, depending on what time it is, a different thing happens. Here, we make a choice, and most of the time, players make choices. At the celebration, do we want to dance with Sapphire? Read 2444. Do we want to dance with Grisbeck and Penny? Read 9660. Do we want to join in the gnomes in song? Now, this is interesting. That would be, start singing, start performing. That would take us to 9182. But for us to choose that, we have to have the performance skill. Did Jen and I, when we were creating our characters, is one of us a performer? Because if we're not, that's an option that's denied us. And we might say, man, what would have happened if we'd gotten up on stage and danced and sang for everybody in town at this big celebration? Well, the only way to find out, play the game again, make a new character, and if you made a battle-hardened wizard the first time, make yourself a bard next time. Make sure you give yourself some combat, because of course there's going to be a lot of combat in this game, but the real joy of this game is all this world you explore. Then my fourth choice, join a group dance, 1163. So, now, these are interesting because these are kind of social adventures, but you know what? You're going to be facing adventures, a sliver of silver, where instead of choosing, well, do you talk to this person or do you dance with that person, or do you give this item if you've got the item to the other person, who knows what it's going to be. Instead, you, let's see. Before you're aware of what just happened, the goblin is sprinting down the tunnel ahead of you at a surprising speed. The lantern oil on the ground catches fire, and the fire soon spreads over the tunnel floor. So what do you do? Do you leap the flames and chase the goblins? Do you try to put the fire out before giving chase, or do you squelch the hazard with runic frost? Now, you can only do that last one if you're a runic wizard, and maybe you were, maybe you weren't. If you weren't, well, am I just going to chase this guy in this chase scene, or am I going to try and put out the fire, etc., etc.? And those are going to take you on radically different adventures. Sometimes they dovetail back to each other and you've gone on different paths, the same thing. Sometimes you end up in very, very different circumstances. There are some choices you can make in this thing that radically change the entire world. And you can better believe, you'll want to play this through at least one. There's one event that can happen that alters everything. And so you'd want to play at least twice to see what the game is like, with option A and option B. And if I didn't play, and now here's another thing as well. The game comes with these little tokens. Each player, if you're playing with a group, takes a token. And, by default, they're all face up, they're active. Anybody can make a choice when you come to this thing. If both of our tokens are up and Jen and I were playing, hey, maybe I don't have Runic Frost, but Jen does. So we say, okay, Honey Pie, use your runes, squelch the hazard. So Jen does that and we go to 3302, right? Okay, Jen flips her token. Now, after we go to 3302, which I'm not going to read right now, I don't want to spoil too terribly much. Although actually, if something happens, then we go to another place and so on. We eventually get where we're going to need to go. The next choice has to be made by me. So, because Jen made a choice, now I have to make the other choice. And maybe the other choice is going to fit in with my skills. Maybe it's not. There's always a skill-free option you can do. But after I make my choice, I flip mine, and now they're all flipped, everybody can go again. So, the game often puts you in these situations where, oh my gosh, this would be perfect for you, but you're kind of still exhausted from the last thing that you did. So now I've got to step up. That creates even more variation and variety in these circumstances. Because at that dance, what if it was Jen who didn't have the performance skill, who took us to that party? And while I'm ready to dance and perform, because I'm a performer, I'm a bard, it's her decision we have to make at that party I was talking about before. Again, the outcomes are always going to be interesting things, but they are reflective of who you are. And again, you're supposed to make these decisions as often as not necessarily based on your skills, although that's a big part of it, but based on who you are. Like I said, this has been a really eye-opening thing for Jen because, I could do this or this. I don't know, which one should I do? Which one do I think has a better chance of success? No, don't think about that. Who is your character? What is their background? Who were they? What are the scars they carry them? What are the internal journey that they're on? What choice would they make under those circumstances? Again, that's another beautiful thing about this game. The character creation puts all that, teaches you how to make a well-rounded character, and then play as that character and role play. Not just make choices off a list, but make choices based on who you become as you're transported into this world. It is a phenomenal experience. I know some people are saying, this is just choose your own adventure on steroids, but that's not it, folks. This is so much more. And really, for me, the best thing I can say is this is an introduction to the broad, wide world of pen and paper role-playing games, your Dungeons and Dragons, and your, oh my God, there's so many of them out there. It does require a Dungeon Master. All these different books you can play through are the Dungeon Master. I mean, heck, I didn't show you, but the game even comes with a big, gigantic map of Dragonholt, the town, with a bunch of numbers. So that's how we choose where we're going to go and who we're going to talk to while we're, having our little sojourns in town before we go out and plunder a dungeon or, assault a tower or whatever type of adventure-y things we do. We'd spend just as much, if not more time, doing social interactions, getting to know these people, living in this world. And, it's the passage of time. It's the fact that the game really encourages storytelling. It's the fact that, sometimes it's a tough choice. You know what? We're in a situation where there's a lot of magic going on. Jen could use her runes right now on that example I just get, but maybe I should do the physical thing so we save her runes for the next thing. So there are gameplay choices as well. And of course you have hit points. If you run out of hit points, what happens is you start losing some of your skills, and then you have to find ways to earn those skills back. So the game, this is not really a game you're going to lose. You might make certain decisions that give you very bad outcomes, but you'll always be able to move forward, and the next day is another day. But the thing is, the next day comes, everything that happened before is in the past. You just can't go back and do the same thing over and over again because time moves forward. It's a living, breathing world. It is amazing. Jen and I have loved it to death, folks. That is Legacy of Dragonholt. Really phenomenal experience. And I think this has the potential to get a lot of people interested in a whole new style of gaming that maybe they knew existed, but they didn't understand what it was. This lets you understand what a really great role-playing experience is. A role-playing is not about, hey, let's have a map and a bunch of minis and roll a bunch of dice. A role-playing experience is about telling stories with others. Here, we are telling our story by the decisions we make in and amongst this big epic story that the developers have made for us. Legacy of Dragonholt, folks. That's it. Okay, folks, I was about to sign off there, and I wasn't really going to talk about this, but I was talking to my wife, Jen, and she said, you know what, I should bring it up. Because really, the only purpose of a Rahdo runs through video is to let you know whether this is going to be the right game for you and yours. Now, I can't really demonstrate it that much because I don't want to spoil the story, but this is a game where there can be, interspecies, gay relationships. This is a game where gender reassignment is viewed by society as just a normal thing, and nobody really has a problem with it. This game, and the writer, Nikki Valens, basically has created a kind of a fantasy utopia where, it's a very, inclusive society where everybody gets along, everybody equally values and appreciates everybody, and it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, just are you the right person for the job. Doesn't matter whether you're gay or straight, just whether you're the right person to make the world a better place for those around you. That's what this game is all about, and Jen and I, we loved it. That's something to bear in mind. And one other thing that occurred to me too, I didn't mention this up front, but you might have gotten an idea from just those little snippets I read. They were actually fairly short, but a lot of times, this game is going to make you read a lot. This can be some very dense and verbose text. There are often passages that spend a lot of time detailing what characters are wearing or what the room you're in looks like and stuff like that. This is not punchy or snappy. Well, sometimes it is. But this is a game that if you're going to not play it solo, if you're going to play it with a group, there's going to be a lot of reading. Now, that may be good for you or may not. For me and Jen, it was great. I have to admit, this game is probably going to take you around anywhere from 10 to 15 hours. Of those 10, 15 hours, I read probably 90% of this to Jen. And I did it in my typical Rahdo, big, boisterous, loud speaking, voice, acting out all the characters, trying to bring emotion to the scenes. But for some people, they might find, oh my gosh, this just keeps going. And so that could be a problem, particularly because one other thing that's worth mentioning. You may have noticed in the examples I gave two examples that were just kind of soft social situations and one that was an action scene. I would say the ratio of action to non-action in this game is probably 1 to 5. Again, over the 10, 15 hours you play, maybe 3 hours are high fantasy action where you're going and you're fighting and you're, adventuring and journeying and all that stuff. The majority of the time in this game, you're just meeting people and getting to know them. and maybe helping them out in their day-to-day life, or bettering yourself by just trying to become a better person and learn more about the world. That's the main narrative focus of this game. And for some people are like, where's the action? I want a high fantasy. I don't want all this chitty chat, soft, touchy-feely stuff. I just want to go out and slay some orcs and storm a tower, or defeat a dragon, or whatever it might be. There is action in this game, and quite frankly, the fact that the action only comes every once in a while, I think it makes it that much more punchy and exciting when it does come. But you might be somebody who finds yourself a bit disappointed that the ratio isn't more 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 instead of like 1-to-5 like it is right now. So that's something to bear in mind as well. So like I said, I thought it was worth getting back on. Jen talked me into it because as excited as I am, this is definitely not going to be a project for everybody. But hopefully you have a pretty good idea now, because I can't actually demonstrate the real game for you, but hopefully you have an idea of whether this might be something that'd be worth seeking out for you and yours. And that's it, folks. That is Legacy of Dragonholt. Thanks very, very much for watching, everybody. Talk to you later. Have a very, very nice day. So long. Bye-bye.